ACULCO Radio.
Saben que nuestro programa de hoy va a ser sobre las pensiones. Tenemos aquí a Simon. Simon, buenas tardes.
Hello. Hola.
Buenas tardes, ¿cómo? ¿Español?
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, así es. Simon va a hablar sobre las pensiones, sobre todo las pensiones privadas. Simon, I understand that you're going to explain to us a few questions about the private pensions. That's right?
I'll certainly try.
You're going to try? You're going to try your best? Yeah, it's a lot of questions that we can ask, but of course, it's the time. We only got a few minutes in the radio. We got more guests coming later on, so we can all get as many questions as we can. Possibly get answers, many answers as we can as well.
Absolutely.
You know the new law changed a lot of things, and I'm not sure if you're aware that since the 70s, a lot of Latin American people and Spanish people came into the United Kingdom, and they have been working for more than 30, 40 years, and more than likely they are now ready to get a pension. But of course, that pension changed because the law changed from 2016. The law, how many years they contribute towards the pension. Before you can retire at 60, now you have to retire at 63 or 64. How much this will affect people?
Well, essentially, it's not just immigrants; it's all people in the UK who are entitled to a state pension. So, because the cost of providing a state pension is becoming prohibitively more expensive for the government, what they've done is move the retirement age further out. So where you used to be able to retire dependent on whether you're a male or female, you used to be able to retire at potentially 62, 63. They've now moved that out to 66, dependent on when you were born. And there are websites on the government website which will explain, you can look up your date of birth and it will tell you when you're eligible to retire with a state pension. Also, there's changes that have been made to private pensions, which mean that we're currently, or before the 6th of April, you used to be able to have the option of taking what was called tax-free cash and then purchasing an annuity with what was left. You can now take the whole of your pension pot as a cash sum, both taxed and untaxed.
I understand that having cash is everybody's responsibility, and especially with today's government, the Conservative Party, and believe that we ought to look after our own money, and they need to be looked after by the government. Do you think it's irresponsible that a person can cash the whole money and then later on we get really old, hasn't got a penny to live with on?
Potentially, I guess it depends entirely, on how responsible that person is and what they do with their money and the circumstances that they find themselves in at the time that they can access their money. They've done some calculations that suggest if you have, say, £30,000 in your pension pot, but actually buying an annuity under the old system is still something that's worth doing. But again, it depends on your circumstances. It might be that you have debt you need to sort out, and if you can access your funds to reduce your level of debt, that might be something that is appropriate. But again, the idea of a retirement pension pot is that you have money to fund your retirement. In some cases, the amount of money that's there isn't going to do that anyway, and the amount that you have as a cash sum you can do more with now.
Yes, as you know, many, or maybe you don't know, but many Spanish or Latin American people, they don't have such a debt like a mortgage or maybe not even credit cards. Mainly, most of the money usually goes back to their own country because they buy homes back home.
Oh.
So here, all they do is work for many, many years to be able to get a good pension. Do you think that will affect these people, these kind of pensions?
It doesn't have to, because the changes in terms of the state pension, certainly the length of time that they're going to have to work is increased. So essentially they're being told that you're going to have to work for longer for potentially the same amount or less money under the state system. But under the private system, if it's an income that they're looking to generate, essentially the rule changes don't prevent you from doing that.
So the private pension is different from the state pension.
Yeah.
So people who contribute towards a private pension, either because a private income or because they work for a company, they pay their own pension. That will affect, at the end of the day, will affect the state pension, or it has two separate things?
Well, potentially it could do, if because obviously there is a minimum state pension under the means tested benefits. If you previously, without a state pension, it might, without a private pension, it might be that your state pension was below the minimum and would be topped up with benefits. If you've contributed any amount to a private pension, then obviously that money is going to be taken into account when means tested benefits are calculated.
Yeah, that is very important, because I always joke that I'm going to divorce my husband when I be 63. Because I don't want his pension or my pension to get together. Is there any other ways you can get out without divorcing your own husband?
Why not?
So you need a divorce.
Yeah.
You see, I'm just joking. Because it's unfair, because if you're single, you get, let's say, 115, something, if you only pay for 10 years. And if you join, you get 152 if you're single.
Well, the argument is that two people can live cheaper than an individual.
Can we?
Well, that's the argument.
That's the argument. So we can still argue that. So divorce is still on the plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Simon, talk about the private pension. How important is for people today to contribute with a private pension?
Essentially, I mean, it is entirely open to how you perceive what the government are going to do. But essentially the state pension provision isn't going to provide you with enough income to support the kind of lifestyle I would imagine people have been used to whilst working. So in order to have a reasonable standard of living at retirement, you would need to contribute a surprisingly large quantity into a private pension. And there are calculations that suggest that it's something like, I think 18% of your salary if you were going to 18% if you started when you start work.
But you start work now at 16. 18.
Yeah, but you would have to contribute that level of income
and if you
all
retire,
the way through.
If you retire 67, a man retires 67, you're working for more than 40 years to get £500-600 today's money.
It all depends on how investments perform. In your pension, what your pension is invested in. Essentially, all a pension is a tax-efficient investment, whereby all of the funds that are contributed to all of the pensions within a life company are collected together and given to a fund manager in the same way that all stocks and shares are if you're in an equity fund, and that is essentially the fund manager will use the stocks and shares within his equity fund, and dependent on how well they grow or otherwise, because you can potentially lose, then that determines how much pension income essentially that you will get, or pension, the size of your pension fund when you come to retire.
Well, one of the questions that came from the Spanish community was that they worked in Spain for many years. Due to the problems in Spain now, they come here to England and they start working here. How that pension will affect them in Spain, or how they will affect here? Can they join pension together, or is it two separate things, even though they are part of the EU?
I think there are some kind of pension tax harmonisations and arrangements that the government do have, but I'm not sufficiently up to date on how income that's been created in Spain will equate over here.
If I want to go back to Colombia, so I am from Colombia, will my pension will increase every year, or I have to live in this country to be able to get increase?
If you have selected as an option on your annuity, as it's called, an increase, and every year by either what's called RPI, which is Retail Prices Index, or a fixed percentage, it will generally have to be paid into a UK bank account. It's unlikely that they would pay it into a foreign account. So you would still have that money going into a UK bank account, which you would then have to transfer and suffer whatever the conversion rate on the currency is to the country that you're living in. But you would still have that increase.
Yeah. Okay, so many questions here. One of the questions is, how many people understand the system today? Have the companies where you work or different people work, advise people in different languages? Because according to the statistics that we got here, our 4 million people, 1 in 3 claim the pension credit. How well are people advised how to claim the pension credit?
I would suggest it's probably fairly poor in any language, English as well as foreign languages.
So it's no advice to anybody how to claim, because even though I was reading the Guardian, and the Guardian says 4 million can claim a pension credit. And for people who doesn't know pension credit, it means people who pay only for 10 years, and people who've been unemployed during those 10 years but being paid by the social security system, or they're looking after a family or somebody within their family.
I think generally speaking, knowledge of pensions across the population is fairly low, full stop. And it's not until you reach a point at which you start thinking about retirement, by which time it's far too late, that anybody takes any kind of interest. And it's not something necessarily that the government promotes.
Yeah, I've got 2 questions here. One of the questions here says, they gave me 2 examples. It says somebody who only get paid 12 or 14,000 pounds a year, and somebody who pays 60 or 80,000 pounds a year. What they get at the end of the day, do they get the same amount, or how to be different because according to what they pay?
In terms of the state provision, you pay that through your national insurance contributions. So it's based on the number of years that you've contributed. So if somebody's earning £80,000, for example, versus someone who's on the minimum wage,
yeah,
their national insurance contribution will be calculated in exactly the same way.
So not everybody gets exactly the same amount?
So at the state point, if they've contributed the full contribution for the requisite number of years, then they will receive the same state pension.
So if I was on 80,000 and somebody was on 18,000, I pay more than the 18,000. But when I be 63 or 67,
You get the same amount.
The same amount.
If you've contributed.
Even if I contribute 40 years or plus, I still get the same amount as the person who contribute less.
Yeah. That's what the welfare state is based on. The fact that people who can contribute more do to a certain extent.
Okay. And finally, on your experience, how would you advise young people to contribute before or don't contribute at all, or how to people to benefit? Because today you're 20 or you're 25, but that click like that, and suddenly you are 60 and you don't even realise that the years pass by.
Absolutely. Well, now obviously with the introduction of what's called auto-enrolment, any person who is employed by an employer of a certain size will automatically be enrolled in a pension scheme that their employer has to contribute to a certain percentage, which is going to increase over time. So unless you specifically opt out, which you're entitled to do,
it's not law.
You will there's no compulsion to contribute to a pension.
But the company is compulsory. The company must offer.
The company must offer an auto-enrolled pension, will automatically enrol any worker into a pension if they're of a certain size. The larger a company is, the sooner they have to do that. So all large companies will already be forced to have set up an auto-enrolled scheme, and it's now medium-sized companies, and then it will reach down to smaller-sized companies. So unless you specifically opt out, you will automatically be enrolled in your company's pension plan, which your employer will contribute to, and then you will also have to contribute a percentage of your salary to it as well.
So how people can get in touch with companies or with the national insurance to be able to get more information about this pension scheme?
National insurance and kind of the tax elements and the things related to the state system essentially run through the sort of DSSS. So, or what was the SSS? So they need to contact their sort of local benefits office. We'll be able to give them advice, well not advice, but give them information. And the government website, the .gov website, has got quite a lot of information on that.
.gov.co.uk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Simon, thank you very much. Did you advise people how to get a pension? What is the best age to get a pension?
To start a pension or to take a pension?
To take a pension.
Well, when they want to take income?
Yes.
Depends entirely on what it's essentially, everybody has a number that they have
Yes.
in their mind in terms of what they need to provide themselves with a lifestyle that they want to provide themselves with. So essentially, they need to be contributing as much as they can.
Free of tax.
Well, a pension is a tax efficient way of saving for retirement, on the basis that for every pound you put in, the government essentially, every pound that goes into a pension, the government gives you 20% of that. So you only put in 80p, the government puts in 20p for you.
So for every 80 pence, you get 20p from the government.
Yeah.
Free of tax.
Yeah.
But it's not free, because when you get a pension, you pay tax.
When it comes out the other end.
Yeah, and you pay more because it's more worth the money 20 or 30 years time than today.
It used to be, what they used to say was that the reason that you get, or what you get taxed on, is essentially the growth. So the tax-free percentage that you're allowed to take out of your pension pot is roughly equivalent to what you put in it, and the bit you get taxed on over the whole period of your pension pot life is what the growth was on that pot. Now, I'm not quite sure that calculation necessarily stacks up anymore, on the basis that the contribution, the growth on pensions has significantly reduced over the years, as obviously the economic climate at the time has reduced the growth that you can get on investments. But these things are roughly cyclical, so potentially dependent on your investment. That was the thinking that said that actually what you're taking out tax-free is what you've contributed, and then what is taxed is the growth that you've received on that money.
Yeah, okay. People who didn't understand, or people who would like to hear more about this is going to be in a podcast, and you can listen to this podcast later on. You showed me some figures before. Earlier on, you showed me some figures when people can retire, and how can people work out if they pay enough and if they need to pay more. Where they can get figures from?
So if you go to, there is as a result of these pension freedoms, there are websites that are called the pensions guidance. So if you put in pensions guidance into a basic sort of search engine, there will be calculators there which will tell you how much you need to contribute to receive a certain size income at retirement.
Yeah.
I think people generally probably be quite surprised at the amount that they need to contribute.
It's a lot.
To get out an income that they would expect to live on.
Yeah, I don't want to tell people how much I get, but actually I've paid for more than 30 years and I get £168 a month.
Yeah, it's quite frightening.
And I pay more than 243 a month.
The earlier you start and the more you can put in at the beginning, the better off you are.
So let's do a campaign for 18 years old to start paying right now to get 168 in 30 years time. Okay, Simon, thank you very much.
No.
Thank you for being with us.
Gloria Gómez por ACULCO Radio, los número 1 por la número